Now, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. Congressman, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Great to be with you, Chris. Thanks so much.
Let's start with the breaking news, and that is that the Washington Post is reporting on tapes of the president's sister, Marianne Trump, saying things like this about his brother. Let's put them up on the screen. He has no principles, none. The change of stories, the lack of preparation, the lying. What is the president's reaction to those comments and the fact that apparently the president's niece, Mary Trump, secretly taped Marianne Trump?
Well, I think the president has already spoke to that. Another day, another political attack. What I find interesting is any family member that would secretly tape 15 hours of a conversation with somebody, obviously to promote an agenda. She's been very vocal in her support for Joe Biden. This is really a sad day. I've not met the president's sister. I was hopeful to meet her at the funeral for his brother the other day, but you couldn't come out of that tribute to his brother without really recognizing the love and compassion that the president had for his brother and his family. But we will also look at this. A number of the accusations that are being made, I've been able to witness up close and personal, and they're just not true. The president is not only well prepared, but reads so much that it causes me to have to read many times well into the night to catch up with him. And go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, Congressman, but specifically, she talks about his character, Marianne Trump, on these tapes. She says he has no principles. She says that he lies. What's the president's reaction to that?
Well, he's already spoken to that. I can tell you the principle that he has is he loves this country. He's proud of this country. He's proud of the American people that actually make up this country, and he's willing to sacrifice everything, even the personal attacks that come each and every Sunday against this president. You know, I don't know who would want a job if you didn't have the principle of loving the country as much as he does. I get to see it close. It's a great benefit. You know, when we look at what he talks about the promises that he's made, the people that it has affected, and ultimately the prospects of a brighter future because of his actions. And he's going to continue, regardless of the attacks, to make sure that he delivers on behalf of the American people.
All right, well, let's get to the politics and off the family soap opera. President Trump is sharply critical of Joe Biden and his message at the Democratic Convention. Take a look.
If you entrust me with the presidency, I will draw on the best of us, not the worst. I will be an ally of the light, not the darkness.
The Democrats held the darkest and angriest and gloomiest convention in American history.
Now, it is true the Democrats criticized the way the president has handled the coronavirus and the economy and race, but when Biden talks about being an ally of the light, how is that dark or angry?
Well, and listen, you couldn't have watched any of that without considering it dark. I think most of the pundits that are out there would have said that it was a dark, really focused on President Trump. This president will focus on the American people this week coming up. And when we look at it, you know, listen, that speech that Joe Biden gave was very much like a speech that he had given in 2008. But this is not about speeches. Joe Biden has been in office for over 40 years. Politicians give speeches. What we're looking for is action. This president has shown action each and every day. Joe Biden has barely passed 2 bills, one of which he's trying to run away from because of the left. And when we look at it, this president accomplished more in his first 100 days than Joe Biden did in the last 40 years. It's about action. This president's willing to do that. You'll see a real difference this week when we start focusing on the people that the president's policy has actually affected.
We're going to get to some issues. I have one more question, though, on tone. Here was a statement by the president this week, his message.
I'm the only thing standing between the American dream and total anarchy, madness, and chaos.
Congressman, some people would say that's a pretty dark and angry message.
Well, I mean, we don't have to look any further than the streets across the country to see what's happening. You know, supposedly peaceful protests that are now being classified as riots, and this president is the only thing standing between that and anarchy. But here's what it is. It's about defending the police. It's about making sure that we fund them properly, not defund them. It's about making sure that they have the tools to restore law and order and keep safe communities. This is all about safeties, whether it's in the cities or in the suburbs. We need to make sure that we support it. This president has been not,
right.
He's never equivocated in that manner, and we need to do it. We were on the phone yesterday talking about how we can assist Portland and the governor there. You know, they don't want the help, but we continue to see day in, day out things that come across the screen that are just appalling.
I'm going to ask Senator Coons in a moment about all of that, but I want to ask you about some issues on your plate. The House yesterday passed a bill to give the post office $25 billion more to end any of the operational changes, all of this to make sure that people will be able to vote reliably, safely, securely by mail in the November election. Why would the president say he's going to veto that?
Well, Chris, your premise is not correct. The $25 billion, largely messaging bill, because it's going absolutely nowhere, has nothing to do with voting. It has everything to do with a political statement. Here's how I know. Because in the privacy of the negotiating room, I offered $10 billion plus reforms for the Postal Service that actually they've been asking for a long time to Speaker Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. And when we offered that, there was another thing that came along with that. The Postmaster General said he was willing to pay whatever overtime it was needed to make sure that we deliver the mail on time, first-class mail, which includes mail-in ballots. So it was not an issue 3 weeks ago. Here's what we do know is the Speaker said she wasn't willing to do anything piecemeal, and yet we have a piecemeal piece of legislation on a Saturday. Why didn't she come in and do enhanced unemployment? Why didn't she do support for small businesses? Why didn't she come in and do money for education and daycare? I mean, if we're going to be serious about this, let's get serious about it. And hopefully what will happen is the Republican senators will take this bill when it comes across, they'll amend it and actually address many of the things that are hurting America right now in terms of this pandemic response and be able to get it to the president's desk.
I want to ask you one more question about voting, but not mail-in voting. Sean Hannity asked the president this week about whether the Republicans are going to put out poll watchers to make sure that in-person voting will be safe and secure. And here was the president's answer.
We're going to have everything. We're going to have sheriffs, and we're going to have law enforcement, and we're going to have, hopefully, U.S. attorneys, and we're going to have everybody and attorney generals.
Why is the president talking about law enforcement at the polls, which, you know, from our history, is an old tactic that has been used, especially in the South, as a form of voter suppression, especially against minorities?
Yeah, I think what we have is we need to make sure that our polls are safe, and we need to make sure that the polling places continue to be there. I think what the president was really addressing is to make sure that if you want to show up and vote in person, we're going to make sure that that is safe. Whether you're voting for him or you're voting for Joe Biden or you're voting for some other candidate,
but do you need sheriffs to do that?
But as we look at that, sometimes in this new COVID response, what we're finding is because of social distancing, we see a lot more aggressive behavior than I've ever seen in a grocery store. And so to the extent that we're going to deploy thousands of sheriffs, no, we're not going to do that. To the extent that we're going to make sure it's safe, and if the judges at those polling places need any kind of security, we're going to make sure they have the resources to do that.
The president tweeted this yesterday. I want to put it up on the screen. The deep state, or whoever at FDA, is making it very difficult for drug companies to get people in order to test the vaccines and therapeutics. But you know, the president is holding a press conference this evening with the head of the FDA to announce, we've been told, a major breakthrough on therapeutics. So why is he tweeting out that some people at the FDA, the deep state at the FDA is trying to hurt him and delay any kind of scientific progress till after the election.
Well, we're not going to cut corners on any kind of research we can do, but what we will do is cut the red tape. And what the president was specifically addressing is something that I've been involved with over the last 3 or 4 weeks, is a real frustration with some of the bureaucrats to think that they can just do this the way they normally do it. We're facing unprecedented times, which require unprecedented action. This president is right to call it out. And I can tell you that the announcement that's coming today should have been made several weeks ago. It was a fumble by a number of people in the federal government that should have done it differently. And having been personally involved with it, sometimes you have to make them feel the heat if they don't see the light. I applaud the president for putting out the tweet. And I can tell you, it's not just on the announcement that's coming today. There are other actions that need to be taken to make sure that we get the protection for the American people quickly, safely, and securely. And we will do that. But it's only with the unrelenting pressure of the president to make sure that that gets done.
Sorry to interrupt. I got a minute left. I want to ask you one last question.
That's great.
The president was asked this week about QAnon, a conspiracy theory group that the FBI has called a domestic terror threat. The president said he was thankful for the support of people in QAnon, which led to this exchange.
Is this belief that you are secretly saving the world from this satanic cult of pedophiles and cannibals. Does that sound like something you are behind? Or
well, I haven't heard that, but is that supposed to be a bad thing or a good thing?
You can end this controversy right now. Does the president disavow, does he condemn QAnon?
Well, listen, we don't even know what it is. I can tell you, you've spent more time talking on it, Chris, than we have in the White House. I find it appalling that the media, when we have all of the important things that are going on, a list of top 20s, that the first question at a press briefing would be about QAnon, that I had to actually Google to figure out what it is. It's not a central part of what the president is talking about. I don't know anything about it. I don't even know that it's credible. But I can't tell. But no, Chris.
It's not my first question.
Well, I know.
It's my last question.
But it is your question that you're bringing it up, and it's ridiculous. If you want to talk about conspiracies, let's get back to talking about how the FBI and others within the FBI spied on the Trump campaign. I'll be glad to speak about that.
I got 30 seconds here.
Yeah.
So the point is, it's a hate group. It's a group that is called by the FBI a domestic.
If it's a hate group, I can tell you that this president is not for hate. So I can tell you that if it's a hate group that is there, let's look at domestic terrorism and look at Antifa and a number of other areas, and quit spending time on something that 81% of Republicans don't even know what you're talking about.
I think just to add, the only reason that people keep asking is because we didn't get an answer like you did just now. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Congressman.
Well, I'll be glad to give you an answer.
Thanks for your...
I'll be glad to give you an answer with it, Chris. Here's what we have to do is, I don't see it as a legitimate thing that we have to address, and so we're not going to address it. We're going to talk about things that are important to the American people.
Thank you, sir. We'll watch what happens at the GOP convention this week and the message that the president and all of you send to the American people. Thank you, sir.